Michelangelo, the Italian Renaissance genius. He was a genius. He was a genius painter. He was a genius sculptor. He was the one that did David. He did the Sistine Chapel. Genius. I'll tell you something you might not know about him. He had a wicked sense of humour. In 1512, he finished the ceiling to the Sistine Chapel. It's unbelievable that any human being could have done that, but he did that. 30 years later, he started painting the Last Judgment on the altar wall underneath the ceiling. And when the Pope, who was Pope Paul III, heard that Michelangelo had finished a little bit of the wall and had started to take away the scaffolding, he insisted on coming to see what he'd painted already. He was that excited. And what Michelangelo had painted was his interpretation of the last days of judgment, everyone being dragged down to hell. But when the Pope saw it, he was so moved and so impressed that he apparently fell to his knees and started praying immediately. But not everyone was as impressed as the Pope, because one thing that Michelangelo does a lot of is nudes. His work is just full of people, angels, saints, all cavorting in the nip. The Pope had brought with him his master of ceremonies, Biagio da Cesena, who was absolutely horrified at all the flesh he was seeing on the walls. He said it was sacrilegious, and he hoped that eventually the wall would be torn down. The Pope, who was very much Team Michelangelo, was really shocked by that and said that if anyone so much as touches that wall, they will be excommunicated. And you'd think that that would be enough of a win, but not for Michelangelo, who ordered his assistant to paint over one of the newly revealed corners of the fresco, where he painted a perfect likeness of Biagio as Minos, the judge of Hades. And of course, word got back to Biagio that that's what Michelangelo had done, so he insisted on going to have another look, and he brought the Pope with him, thinking that he'll get Michelangelo a right telling off this time. So this is Michelangelo's Last Judgment, and right down here in the corner, wrapped in a snake, is Biagio. Let's zoom in. There he is. And Biagio was outraged. He was so angry. He stood in front of that painting and he screamed at the Pope. It's like, look what he's done. Look where he's put a snake. To which Michelangelo replied, well, it's a covering, isn't it? I knew you wouldn't want to be depicted entirely naked. The Pope laughed and complimented Michelangelo on the likeness. And so now forevermore, the man that criticised Michelangelo as having too much flesh in his art is portrayed on the walls of the Sistine Chapel with a snake covering himself. I told you he was funny.